Hello and welcome to the Transfer Flow podcast. And on today's episode, we're rounding up all the transfer rumours concerning Real Madrid. They're looking for a centre-back after the injury to Eder Militao, but who could they consider? Then we're going to go on to the right-backs. Are there any alternatives to Trent Alexander-Arnold and who's coming through the academy? Before we finish up on Florian Wirtz, could Real Madrid really rival Bayern Munich and Manchester City for his signing? That's all on today's episode. So we're back for another episode of the Transfer Flow. When I say we, it's me, Patrick Van Straten, and Ravi Ramaneni. How are you, Ravi?
Hey, Patrick. I'm good. Moved into New Jersey and all settled. As you can see, I'm in a new place. I have my own little office that I'm slowly decking out. But yeah, it's good to be a little bit more settled.
Yeah, I'm glad that you got there. It feels like we've really charted your progress across the United States on the podcast this season.
For sure. Yeah. So yeah, it's been good, and nice weather here. It's still not. I've heard about a lot of snow and things, but I think we're probably a few weeks or a month away from that.
Oh, it's been snowing here, man. My kids are very excited about it. I showed my baby her first snow. She was not excited about it. She's growing like her 8th tooth in 2 months, so she is not very interested in anything else that's happening right now except for yogurt. But shall we move on to Real Madrid? Because basically we thought it would be fun over the next couple of weeks on our Wednesday episodes to round up some of the transfer rumours concerning La Liga with you. And today we thought we'd focus on Real Madrid. Obviously, the focus has been on Real Madrid already. We've talked about right backs. We've talked about Toni Kroos, replacements, heirs. But now the pressing concern is at centre-back. Obviously, they went into the season pretty thin. They then, in their final match before the international break, picked up a raft of injuries. Lucas Vázquez went off injured. He's going to be out a couple of weeks. Eder Militao, more concerningly, out for the rest of the season with an ACL injury. So they now need somebody to play centre-back. David Alaba isn't back until January 2. And it looks like for the next couple of months, they've got Rudiger, Mendy, Fran Garcia, Aurelien Tchouaméni, Raul Asencio, who is the academy kid who came on and got some minutes in this game, and technically Jesus Vallejo, but I don't think anyone expects him to play. That's it, while they compete on multiple fronts. What are your initial thoughts about this? I mean, it feels like Real Madrid kind of rolled with this possible risk going into the season. They knew that there was a chance this would happen.
Yeah, what they might have probably not expected is Militao coming back from an ACL would have another one, which is very concerning and obviously very bad news. And that, I don't know. I was watching that game live. It was surreal, just players going down every few minutes. Yeah. and then in the middle of all the chaos, Real Madrid scoring goals, and Jude gets his first goal and they win the game 4-0. It just feels like it's just a Real Madrid story where there is a lot of adversity and drama, and then they come through with like a win that if you don't watch the game and don't know anything about it, oh yeah, Real Madrid 4-0 Osasuna, that makes sense.
Yeah. It's good for Vinicius, though. Vinicius gets his hat-trick, and like you say, Bellingham gets off the mark. And we'll touch on Asencio later, but we know for a fact that Real Madrid want to get in a centre-back. Is there an obvious profile for them? Because it feels like they're so thin across the back that they can kind of target anybody.
Yeah. Yes, I think that you could make a case for a right footer, left footer. You could make a case for a more of like a defensive, physical, athletic profile. You could make a case for somebody that's more a cerebral passer that can play next to Rudiger. I think you could that means that they definitely need anybody there, like, somebody that level. Not anybody, but somebody at that elite level. I think whatever profile it is, I think they will happily, that will improve the team overall. I do think that they might even look for two here, to sign two, like one maybe a younger profile that's up and coming, and then another one that's more like a free agent type profile. But I think we're talking about this is more, they don't like to sign players in January. I think that's something that they haven't had good luck with signings in the January window where they were forced to make a signing. But I think right now their hand is forced, and they've made some bad signings in the past that haven't worked out that they brought on. And so they could look for like a short-term solution in January, but it does seem like they want like a more permanent solution to this, and the options that are available that they could get them in January are probably limited. And I think that's always going to be the challenge to how they solve this problem. I think the first choice seems to be that Tchouaméni, who's played at center back, I think 10 or 11 matches so far for them. I think he will slot in there come Saturday or Sunday, whenever their first game is after the break. But I think beyond that, but then that opens up another problem, is it's not a very, very deep squad. So if you move him there, then you're also kind of less on the numbers in the middle of the field. So you have fewer options there as well. But I think that seems to be the initial solution. I think in terms of candidates, obviously there's, as I mentioned, there's a couple of groups of profiles, that names that we're hearing. They fall into a couple of groups of players or types of players that Real Madrid have signed in the recent past. One of them being the guys that are coming out of their contract in their prime, or maybe a year around 28, 29, 30 type players for a center back. Obviously, for more an attacking position, probably a little younger, but I think a center back, that age range, coming out of contract, and they could just pay him whatever. They, instead of paying the transfer fee, they pay a bonus to the player, and then you get someone like that. And then there is the other group that's more where they're going to pay like 9 figures, or like 9 figures is what, 100 million, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I kind of maybe close to 9 figures, probably like a high 8 figures.
These are only numbers that Ted has to worry about. For you and me, Ravi, this is just imaginary.
Yeah, exactly. So so you're talking about like 70, 80 million type number, where you get a prime or a younger profile, like probably under 23 type profile, that has already shown some has some experience, or you can go further younger and get somebody that's going to be ready in a few years. Obviously, that is not going to be a solution for this problem. So, but the way they might want to solve it is, if you look at Rudiger, Militao, now second ACL, David Alaba, whose comeback date has been pushed back multiple times already, is also an older profile. The center back group is old. Like, so they might look for this as a time to think about signing 2 players instead of 1, and the one of them being a younger upcoming profile that can hold down the fort for another 10 years.
Yeah.
A profile like that. So we can go through some of the names. What do you think about how they are approaching this so far?
Yeah, I think the difficulty here is that for Real Madrid, another club might say, things didn't go our way this season. Let's not throw away some good money trying to get the season back on track. Let's maybe wait till the summer and take stock. Real Madrid can't afford to just say, okay, well, the league's gone, the Champions League is gone. They've got to try and go back. And the problem you have there, obviously, is there are players who are available who are probably not good enough. And then there are players who are good enough who probably aren't available. Obviously, they hope to address this in the summer with Lenny Yoro. I think I would probably be thinking about 2 as well. I think that one of them, I'd probably go for a young player who is going to have value to you going forward. And then maybe I'd be more willing to try and loan or pay a low fee for somebody as a stopgap. To be honest with you, Real Madrid have actually been okay at bringing in these guys on short-term deals and then flipping them. They did that with Hosselu, for example. And you can imagine them doing that again. I think it's a really difficult market for them right now.
Yes.
So I like a lot of the names. So I guess we should talk about some of the names, because there's been a list of them that's come out that you've sent through here, and some of them make an awful lot of sense. So let's look at the veterans then. There's Jonathan Tah of Bayer Leverkusen. He is out of contract next summer. There's Aymeric Laporte, who's off in Saudi at the moment. Other older players here, there's Mario Hermoso, who is at Roma, having previously been at Atletico and Espanyol. Not really playing much at Roma, though who knows how that will change now that Ranieri is in post. I don't think they get Tar in January. And he's the only one of these I'm super interested in, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ta is the one. I think the name that's probably been echoed a lot in the circles in Spain and Real Madrid is that name, and I think he's also like a partner to Rudiger for Germany. I think they played together last night, so there is a lot of good things about him. Very strong athletic profile, can track back, and also reads the game well. Decent passer. He's right-footed. It's okay. I don't think I think Real Madrid has played many years with two right-footed center backs. It's not the end of the world, but if they can address it with a left-footed center back, I think it will help them. They would do it, but I don't think that would be like a go no go criteria. It's more of a nice to have. Yeah, for me, he's the best of these three in terms of age and also athleticism, and also he fits the profile. I mean, Jonathan Tah fits the profile of Real Madrid signing guys coming out of contract, and that's at 28. It's a really good age for that type of signing for Real Madrid, coming from a high quality team, playing with Xabi Alonso, who is also rumored to be on the agenda to maybe join Real Madrid now that Pep has extended in City. So depending on how this season goes and what happens with Carlo, if Carlo decides to step down, I don't know. So there is something there. So Aymeric Laporte is also a great option for me because he slightly older, but he's played at the highest level with City in the Premier League, and he fits the bill of like he will solve their build out problems. Yes. I think he's great asset there. He's not going to be the athletic profile, but I think you can pair him with Rudiger. And I think he's also left-footed, so that solves that problem too. And he's expressed that he's not very happy in the Middle East. So that may be something, and his contract expires in 26. So maybe they could do a low fee. Now, obviously, clubs in the Middle East haven't been very cooperative when players decide to go there for the money, and then within a year or two they say, "Well, I want to go back." Mm-hmm. It hasn't been like a pleasant experience overall, so I don't know how that works out. But I think that one would be somebody that can come in and instantly improve the team in many ways, because they also have the problem in the midfield of somebody to build and progress the ball. I think with him there, I think he could provide that, some of the cover for that. Then he could play a more like a Valverde and Camavinga, Tchouaméni type midfield and have him do the bulk of the ball progression. So there is value in getting him there. Obviously, slightly older, so you have to plan accordingly. So that I think Hermoso for me is just a name. He's also apparently, I think early on he was in the Real Madrid Cantera, probably for a short period. And he's definitely like a big step down from these other two for me. And I don't think that, and his contract runs through 27, so Roma will want like a transfer fee. I don't think they will pay a transfer fee for a profile like that. If he was available on a free, I think there may be more interest, but they won't. I don't think that's a real option for me.
Yeah, I think Hermoso, you look at him and you think, okay, if he's got 150 minutes, if Roma is still not using him in January, maybe you can loan him for the rest of the season. Doesn't really feel right. But I suppose that again, Real Madrid have had success loaning people's off cuts before. I remember they did it with Chicharito Hernandez in the season they won La Decima. But he's left-footed. He's an okay passer. Like, he's a decent player. He never grew into the player he looked like being before he went to Atletico Madrid. I think, look, obviously there's lots of information here that we don't have. So, for example, Leverkusen were obviously happy to play hardball over Tar in the summer when Bayern Munich wanted him, running the risk that they'd lose him for free next year. Well, They're 9 points behind in the Bundesliga now. Maybe that calculation changes when they get to January and they think, well, we're not really in a title race and we could get 20 mil for him or something reasonable there. Like you say, really dominant in the air, good passer, very athletic. He's 28, 29. I think he's 29.
28. Yeah.
Okay. So you can get probably like 3 good years out of him. If you get more than that, you're very lucky, I think. Laporte to me is one of the likeliest names on this list. Just because I could see there being some way for Real Madrid to grease the wheels without Nasser. You can imagine we play a friendly or something like that, some sort of agreement of that kind that gets this done. And he's 30 years old. He still has looked really good against top class opposition. At his best, I thought he was maybe 1A. If Van Dijk was the best defender in the Premier League, then Laporte was right there behind him. And like you say, maybe reduces the need to go for a midfield creator. You can't do that amount of work in the January window. So okay, I think those are interesting. Tar would be great. Laporte would be very good. Hermoso is a last resort. Let's talk about the younger players then, because if you were going to get one of those guys, you might be tempted to also set aside some money to go and get the guy who was next on your list after Leny Yoro. And the names we've got here are Gonzalo Inacio at Sporting, who's been kind of mooted for a big move for a long time, but he's still only 23. You've got Vitor Reis at Palmeiras. He's 18 years old.
That's like, to me, like a Leny Yoro number 2 type name, just same age.
Yeah, but I mean, so he feels gettable, but on the other hand, if you only brought him in January,
which is exactly the same argument we put forth for United when we discussed United's summer business. We said, well, if you just bring and then subsequently they brought on De Ligt, and I think that made a lot more sense then, because you're not gonna throw in a 18-year-old to, as good as he is, just depend on him. That's just not good kind of planning. So, and that's where we're also talking here about them bringing in 2 between maybe January window and the summer window. And I think this Vitor Reis profile fits very well for the summer and the longer term prospect. And I think he'll be very expensive. Brazilian clubs do bargain hard, but Real Madrid definitely have really good connections in Brazil, and they've got Rodrygo and Vinicius very young, and they paid a lot of money, but they have people there that if there is a deal to be done, I think they can get it done.
I'd be really interested to hear you talk about him, because from my point of view, as somebody who hasn't worked behind the scenes in clubs, and I only have access to the public data that you can find through whatever it is, Who Scored, FB Ref, all that kind of stuff. What's your perspective on him as somebody who's an experienced recruiter?
I mean, looking at I think I've been working on this problem of predicting young players, how they progress. And it's one of the hardest problems in sports, just because there's not enough data to really go off of. Like, there's a conversion rate of how many 18-year-olds will debut for Real Madrid, or will go on to debut for Real Madrid or teams like that. Is like, there's not many, around the world, like top 10 teams. Let's not say Real Madrid, but let's say top 10.
Yeah.
So I think one of the most reliable indicator because of lack of data is just the number of minutes played at a young age, how many times they start, how many times they're being trusted to play. And Palmeiras is a big team, and Brazil is a huge league in terms of money, and following is a huge league, and Palmeiras is one of the biggest teams. So, and he's been playing for them a lot. So I think that gives me confidence. And then looking at his numbers, they look pretty impressive for that age in that league. Now, I think the big thing is how will he translate from there? I think Leny Yoro, he was playing in France, so it's maybe a little bit more straightforward calculation of, well, he's been already playing in Europe, big league. even though French league has kind of come off that levels in recent years. I think with him, there is the moving from South America to it's going to be his first time playing away from home. So that's something that we always look at when we bring in players for a lot of money. Is that does he have experience playing in different cultures? Something like that. So obviously that's not with him. But then if you're talking about Real Madrid, there's already a huge Brazilian contingent there. So I think that may be an easy adaptation for him to adapt to the new surroundings. So I would look at him seriously, but with the eye that I'm not going to depend on him that much next year. Like it would be somewhat like an Endrick signing or a Vinicius signing a few years ago. Well, he is going to eventually, we believe in him, but even we're not going to depend on him right away.
Mm-hmm. So if he were to come in, I mean, the advantage obviously of like the shape of the Brazilian league is that January signings work quite nicely. But you'd expect that if he came in, we would still be seeing Tchouaméni prioritized over him and potentially Asencio too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So he's one of the names in this category. And obviously, Real Madrid have been very successful in the last few years at bringing these guys out of Brazil. I mean, they had their misses 10 years ago or so. You think about guys like Lucas Silva, but then in the time since, they've been highly successful at spotting the guys who had the talent and then at cultivating it into top level ability. Who else is in this category of young, outstanding centre-backs who you think Real Madrid could target besides Inacio and Reis?
I think the one other name that comes to my mind is Castello Lukeba at Red Bull Leipzig.
Yeah.
Another 21-year-old, but his contract is through 2029. So that could be like, I'm sure they've done it to protect his investment. And I think they see him, a lot of clubs come after him because of his athletic profile, and also like somebody that's, he's very athletic and, more of a defensive profile. That's a lot more, tracking dribblers and, 1v1 defending, very good in that. Less, so far hasn't shown much in terms of passing or progressing the ball, but that could also be due to the Red Bull philosophy. Some of it, you put him in a different system. They might, you could probably expose other skills that the player has, but are not used in a Red Bull system. So I think he's a really good profile to look at the younger profile. And the advantage with him above Vitor Reis is that he's already in Europe and he's playing in Germany, which is one of the top leagues. So there are a few questions that are answered, or your concerns answered just because of where he is.
Sure.
So you have a little bit more confidence in someone like that.
Yeah, I suppose, Lyon have a great academy and Lyon were playing him. Leipzig recruited him and Leipzig are playing him. So you kind of got those sign-offs, like the imprimatur of these guys. But he's got about 7,500 minutes between Liga and the Bundesliga, which is, really quite a lot at his age.
For a 21-year-old, if you think about it, if you divide it by 3 years, it's like he's played a full season from age 18. Like, 7,500 by like 2,500 minutes, roughly a full season, or like 75% of a season. For 18, 19, 20, or 19, 20, 21-year-old, that's a pretty good, like, it improves the confidence that this is a guy that can fit in.
Yeah, and he's not. I agree with the passing. He's okay. Like, it's not like he's bad, and he's left-footed, so that's fine. So he could potentially be really good, and he's not super dominant in the air. But to me, this is one of those things where he extended his contract. That contract through to 2029. They only extended it last month, and I think it's one of those situations where you kind of think, does this have an agreement in it that at 60, 70, 80? You're allowed to go. Is that like, what was in it for you? Because Lukeba must have known that a lot of people were interested in him. And honestly, in the 5 hours or something since you sent me this list, I saw him linked with Bayern Munich. I saw him linked with Manchester City. I saw him linked with Liverpool, and I thought, oh, okay, right. So this does feel kind of like you're on the right track when you're looking at potential Real Madrid recruitment.
Yeah, for sure. And another name that I think you might have mentioned it in the previous pod, or you or Ted, about Murillo from Forest. Another 22-year-old Brazilian, very athletic, defensive profile. Does have some progressive passing, but I think it's a lot more like direct, longer passes than like a system like Real Madrid. But less confidence on this than Lukeba, for example, in terms of minutes. I think he just moved over, but he's done well in England, coming from Brazil. I think this is his first season, so he's been doing well. So I think 6 months from now, this could be a good. They would have a good sample about him, and then we'll have a good idea. But seems like a promising player, and he's also been the one called up by Brazil to replace Militao in the 23 for the qualifiers. So there is there's definitely a few things there to check off, that he's checked off those boxes.
Yeah, it's just that he's part of the difficulty here, I guess, is how you recruit people from different types of sides, so teams that play much more defensively, like Forest, or teams that play with a totally different shape, like Sporting. Well, there you can kind of say, well, Inaccio's like the wide centre back in the back three, so actually that kind of gives me confidence, maybe, that he's comfortable defending in the wide zones. With Murillo, I think, okay, I know you're athletic. I don't know if you have the passing chops.
No.
I know that you can play a role in a defensive system. Can you cover an enormous amount of space and not do stupid stuff like that? That is such a hard thing to tell with defenders.
Yeah, especially with Real Madrid, how they play. Like, your defenders, the attackers are not going to drop to help. So you're probably on an island a lot of times.
Yeah.
And you have to make a lot of one-on-one good decisions. So that's an important thing. And that is only something that some of the things, even though you may have the speed, you won't be able to get good at it until you see enough of those situations, and that's experience. And that's what experience gets you, is somebody like a Jonathan Tah would know how to defend that type of space, where to position himself. He would learn that pretty quickly without having to make as many mistakes as maybe someone younger, because he hasn't seen those situations enough.
Would it change your decision making in this situation that there's so little stability around the Real Madrid squad? Because if you're looking at signing, say, a right-sided centre back, then we have no idea who's going to be next to them. Like, maybe Lucas Vazquez, maybe Asencio, maybe somebody else who comes in January. The midfield in front of them is not even set in stone. The right wing is not set in stone. Would that push you towards a more experienced player?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think, though, I would say yes to it, but with the caveat that overall their centre back group is getting pretty old.
Sure.
So I would still want that second signing to be a longer term, like a low 20-year-old type pick that can grow into this side and become a standout or become the starter for many years. I think that they have to address, and for sure that addressing that in January will be harder. But I think that that's something that they need to address.
Okay. So if you were in charge, the players we've discussed, I would say that I would probably try and get Tar and Reis. Like, that seems the most likely thing to me. Either Tar or Laporte plus Reis seems like it would be doable. Is that what you would lean towards?
That's what I would lean toward. I would go for Laporte and Reis. I think that would be, and Tar, obviously, that's another one, like 1-1A in the experience bracket. And then I would go for the other. The other name that I want to bring up is the partner of Jonathan Tah at Leverkusen, Piero Hincapié.
Yeah.
Another really good left-footed profile. This is a player we actually tracked back in the day in MLS. We're dreaming if we could get him. Like, he's very young in Ecuador, and to get him to MLS. But obviously it was kind of a pipe dream. But He's a really good left-footed profile and has played a lot of minutes for. I think he's 21 or 22 right now. Let me check.
Yeah, he's young.
He's 22. So he is 22. His contract is up through 27, but he is someone that I think can be a great profile too. Like, he's a very defensive profile, but also has the passing ability. So he can be someone that can really do well with them, and he can defend the wide spaces also.
Yeah.
So it'd be a really good profile. This is someone that I don't think I've seen a rumor about him, but because they're talking a lot about Jonathan Tah, I think that I'm sure when they watched him, they also watched this guy, Hincapié, and I think he's also a really good, would be a really good signing for them in the younger, but he is someone that it'd probably be impossible to get in January, but if they can pay, he could be a starter after preseason. Like, if they get him in the summer, you could pencil him in as a starter.
Yeah, I love the player. It kind of feels like whoever moves quickly and decisively for a Leverkusen player might block the people who come for Leverkusen players afterwards, because Leverkusen can sell a couple of these guys for huge fees, and then they can say, right, okay, well, we're keeping Palacios, we're keeping Wirtz, we're keeping Frimpong, whoever it might be. On the topic of Frimpong, then, shall we have a look at the right back zone? Because we've talked a bit about Trent as an option there. We've mentioned Frimpong as an option there. But there's now talk in Madrid about trying to get somebody through from the academy if they can. It feels a little bit like a response to the way Barcelona have been doing things this season.
I think a little bit. And also, I personally think there's a lot of euphoria after what happened in the Osasuna game. And
yes,
and don't get me wrong, Asencio was one of the 3 or 4 players that went to the US in the preseason tour as the 3 or 4 players from the academy. So I think there is definitely some precedent there that they have some sort of confidence in him, in that player, that he can take the next level, which is why they put him on the field. And I thought he did well, even though defensively I have my questions about him. I think he could play as a right back, but he's more of a center back. He could play both positions. So I think he will get some minutes, and I want to see him start for Real Madrid in a game, and in the next few weeks, and see how he does. It can't be that he is going to make a few mistakes and then they just immediately bin him, that because he's not ready. So the thing with Barcelona is that they've played some of these younger players through their errors and through their bad times, and not that they stunk up the joint every game, but it's like it's going to be up and down, so you have to be ready for that up and downs with them. And I want to see that. I've heard the name a lot now in the last week and a half, because there were no games in Spain, and it's just been this. But I don't think I'm not fully sold yet that they're gonna do that. I've also heard another name, Jesus Fortea. He's under 17, like a 17-year-old. So I think those names sound great, and as you said, some of it could be in response to Barcelona, what Barcelona has done with the youngsters in the last couple of years, and how they are paying dividends this year for them. But I will wait and see if they actually do that.
Yeah, Real Madrid have not been, or at least Ancelotti hasn't been particularly good about bringing through academy guys. Obviously, we've seen Fran Garcia play a little bit. Fortea is 17, I think. So if he were to come through, then that would be a considerable gamble. Is this an area where you think Real Madrid could improve, or is it just, an inevitability given their recruitment strategy where they are just picking up the best youngsters in the world?
I think it's difficult. I think if you do a longitudinal analysis of players coming through different academies, like Barcelona, Real Madrid, top academies. Let's just say, just keep it to Spain, and see how many of them end up professional players. Not necessarily for their team, for their senior team, but they go on to become professionals. Real Madrid academy actually produces a good number of players, but they just end up playing for other teams. Like a lot of them have good careers in other places.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because of what you just said. Is they are going and getting best players, and every year they have to win the Champions League. And somebody has to really break that door down to, as a 21-year-old or a 20-year-old or a 19-year-old coming through from the academy, to come in and take a starting spot and make it his own. I think it takes time there. And so what ends up happening is, like, they have a lot of talent, and a lot of teams are waiting to see which one is the chosen one by the first team that goes to
Yeah.
that goes to the US for the preseason trip. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's still a lot of good players, and they try to take them, or they try to offer them contracts. And there is another, like, on the Real Madrid topic, there's another thing. A lot of second division teams in Spain, especially around Madrid, they look for Real Madrid rejects,
Mm-hmm.
like, guys that played for Real Madrid B or Castilla for a year, and they are like, they're not extended their contract. They're just waiting to see who they are not extending, and they just go immediately sign those players. A lot of them, just because it's not like the worst recruitment strategy if you are
No.
cash strapped. You're just taking like guys who didn't make it at the biggest club in the world, right? So,
Mm.
so I think that, I don't know, like, I don't think that Real Madrid will ever be the team that has 5 starters from their academy playing in the Champions League semifinal. I don't think that's just not how that club operates.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, it'd be interesting to see if they could bring a couple of these guys through. I mean, I guess with Real Madrid it doesn't matter, but it always feels like it's a good way to have that kind of connection with your supporters, even when things are going badly. I always think
Yeah.
PSG a very different kettle of fish, but it does feel like it was a real weakness for PSG as they built themselves into a global brand over the last 15 years.
Yeah. No, I agree. I see what you mean, but like, they do produce a lot of good players. It's just that they don't take that jump, because you're literally getting the top of the top, cream of the cream, for in every position.
Yeah. Okay. Well, on the topic of top of the top, one last player that we wanted to talk about who's been linked with Real Madrid over the last week or so is Florian Wirtz. This would be a summer move, and it would not be a signing that Real Madrid would make without competition. Bayern apparently want him too. Price is expected to be 100 mil plus. Bear in mind that some of this reporting here comes from Sport. Sport are a Barca paper, so they always want to represent it as the most embarrassing to Real Madrid it could possibly be, right? So it's Bayern are going to beat them to, and but he's been linked to Manchester City as well. I love the player. I don't really get what he'd do at Real Madrid.
Yeah.
It
I
doesn't
don't
seem like an obvious fit.
No, it's not a good fit for them. But I've seen this in the Madrid papers also. But sometimes they just copy each other anyway. Like, if someone posts a rumor about a player in one paper, like, by the evening, the other paper also talks about it as if
Sure.
it's their exclusive report. But yeah, I don't see a fit here. It's just, I don't.
He's played, I think I've got down here
Where would he
100.
play? Well, so based on, what
That's
do
the
you?
question. That's
Yeah.
the question, right? Like, we're looking at Real Madrid and we think, okay, right, they need some width on the right hand side. That'd be great. Well, he's played 10% of his Leverkusen games wide, and that includes games played on the left, which very much would not be helpful for Real Madrid. And
Yeah.
even if they signed him and they played him in the middle, well, that would mean they'd need to bench another central midfielder, of whom they've got quite a lot of. They've got loads of starting quality central midfielders. It would also make you wonder what's going to happen to Arda Guler. So I would be thinking maybe I'd take a gamble on Arda Guler. Arda Guler was linked to Arsenal today, and I thought, oh yeah, that would make kind of a lot of sense actually. I just don't. Or you're going to just like chuck him out on the right hand side and say figure it out, and he's good enough that he'll probably be pretty good there. But if he's world class in the middle, it seems strange to say maybe he'll be good enough for Real Madrid playing out of. I just don't really understand it.
Yeah, no, I don't. I just I think that's not the area they will focus on. I think they need like, I think if you want the top three positions, they need to look for center back, full back, and the number 6. I don't think he can fit in any of those positions. So I can see like a number 9 as maybe someone that's, because I don't, and we'll have to see how this Mbappe as a 9 experiment, how long this goes on, what if they can actually turn this around, because that's one role, maybe even as a backup 9. I think that would be really helpful for them. Somebody like a Joselu coming off of the bench and changing the shape or changing the point of attack. Sorry, changing the kind of the focus of the attack, that now they have like a target forward and they can play very differently. That, if you remember, like in the Champions League, the past couple, I think that switch when he comes on was when teams kind of, the opponents had trouble, because that's a completely different look than what with Bellingham as last year, with Bellingham as like a false 9 type position right behind those two wingers. So I just think that, I don't know if Florian Wirtz, I don't think he fits in any of those roles. So I would be like, why would I sign him? And also it's not that these are going to be cheap. These, if you want to replace all these positions to fill them up with top end talent, you are looking at maybe the experienced center back is not going to be expensive. Maybe if you discount that, the younger center back is going to cost you 70 or 80. And the number 6 is going to cost you somewhere in that range, top end number 6, if you want to solve the problem that way. So you're talking about at least 150, 100, maybe 170 million type investment to fix the problems they have. I'm not even talking about the right back. So yeah, I don't. Now, I think that someone might come and say, well, it's only this year. Militao is back next year. Carvajal is back next year. But Carvajal is going to be 33 or 34 next year. So they have to have a solution there. Militao will be second ACL. So now you are going to be very careful with him going forward. So I don't see a need for this position. So I just think that this is more of a rumor. I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see it either. I mean, he makes way more sense for Bayern, for example, where you could imagine him kind of interchanging with Musiala between the left and the center. You could imagine him at Man City, taking the De Bruyne like chief creative role. And again, everybody there could be reasonably fluid. You could imagine, him and Foden kind of swapping. To me, it just feels like he's one of the best young players in the world. Therefore, he's linked with Real Madrid. Real Madrid are probably going to hire Xabi Alonso. Xabi Alonso is his manager. Therefore, he's linked. I wanted to ask you, just before we get out of here, Ted on Monday suggested the possibility of Real Madrid taking Liverpool's entire right-hand side. So Trent and Salah both going there in the summer on a free. What do you think of that idea?
Wow, that would be a Real Madrid type move if they do that. Yeah, I mean, I think Salah is in great shape. I mean, when we talked about this, about how will Liverpool renew these players, or what are the process they will go through to renew these players? And one of the things for Salah was maybe he's asking for 3 years. They're probably only willing to give 1 year, 1+1 type thing.
Yeah.
And I think Real Madrid could give him 2 years, and it's also Real Madrid, so I think they will have some leverage if they will say, well, hey, we're going to give you just 2 years. How about that? And I think they could pull him in that way. Yeah, I that would be amazing, but that means they'll have to move out Rodrygo out of the team, and I think that he would. What do you think he would fetch? Maybe like 50, 60?
Potentially more. I mean, I guess it depends how much he plays before the end of the season. Not last season, but the one before, where I felt he really went up a level. That season, I thought that maybe you were looking at kind of an £80 million player. Now, a little bit out of favour, not playing preferred position. I don't know. You're going to get less. But if you could get 60 for him, and you could probably move Guler on as well if you wanted, for decent money, well, you're looking at best part of 100 million between those two guys. Like that's pretty good.
But you know what? None of this has solved yet.
The centre back issues, the defensive midfield issues.
No, not that. I'm just talking about the attack.
Okay.
None of this solves Mbappe. Well, where is he going to play?
Sure.
So, and if you bring in Salah and you have Mbappe, you have Vinicius, if that is going to be your front three, no matter how you shape it, like if that's going to be your front three, I don't know that will work. I think it will work in the sense that I think they'll beat up on some teams, but shape-wise, I think balance, I just don't see that. It just feels a little off. And the other thing is, now you're bringing another established superstar, which is what Real Madrid has done. It's just the Galacticos setup, right? So they've moved away from it a bit, but I think now this would bring it back. I do think it will reduce some of. I think Mbappe might his kind of influence will reduce, and I think there is a lot of commercial, not just sporting, but also a lot of commercial success of Real Madrid riding on that Mbappe signing. There's a lot of eggs in that basket. So I don't know. I think that might dissuade them from doing something like that.
Yeah, it would be absolutely fascinating. I mean, that is really something that is going to have to be solved over the back half of the season. But I don't know. Otherwise, they're going to have to get rid of somebody. And I mentioned this on another show recently that a couple of years' time they might have to get rid of Vinicius if this is the situation. And a lot of people reacted kind of like saying, "Well, Vinicius is one of the best in the world," but you don't have the investment in him that you have in Mbappe, and they just can't.
Yeah,
they might have to move
exactly.
it on to make it work.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's hard. I think if any of us, any podcast says you have to move on Vinicius, probably get a lot of bad comments, and these guys don't know what they're doing. But to me, the long term, that's a real solution, right? It's like that is a very viable solution. I think I don't think, at least based on so far, I don't think Vinicius and Mbappe can coexist and both be very successful and both be happy.
Yeah, and keeping them happy is kind of job one.
Yes.
At Real Madrid. Okay, well, I think that was a really interesting ride through Real Madrid's transfer rumours. As we say, we will try and get to Barcelona, to Atletico Madrid, and to the rest of the league in coming weeks. So if you see an interesting rumour, then do send it to us or drop it in the comments below, and we will add it to our roster. Thank you very much for listening or watching. If you are watching this on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe to the channel. If you are listening on a podcast app, then please drop us a 5-star review. Follow us over on Blue Sky, I would say. Now, obviously, you can follow us on Twitter as well, and make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. But Blue Sky, I think, is going to be where it looks like a lot of the football community is moving. And we really appreciate you continuing to support us, to listen, to watch. Thank you very much, Ravi. It's so interesting hearing you talk about Real Madrid's rumours because, we've praised them so much for their recruitment, and now suddenly they're in a bind. Their recruitment's got to kind of dig them out of it. It's interesting.
Yeah. We'll see how they solve this, but they've been very good in the last few years, so they have definitely earned some credit. So we'll see how they go about this.
That's right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for watching or listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.